Decisions. Keisha. As I sat in the waiting room, the weight of my decision pressed down on me like a gathering storm. In just a few minutes, I would be exploring a path that could forever change my life. I didn't really know how I felt about it all. It was a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Ms. Morris," a voice called out. I looked up to see the medical assistant waiting for me. She smiled at me, almost like she could tell how nervous I was. "Dr. Sullivan will see you now," she told me. "Follow me, please." I followed her to the room and paused at the entrance for a second as the realization that everything was about to change dawned on me. I took a deep breath filled with anticipation and looked inside at the woman wearing a white coat sitting on a stool. She looked over at me. I knew she was wondering why I had paused. She gave an encouraging smile and stood up. The gravity of the choice I had made was immense, and as I took a step into the room, I knew there was no going back. "Hello, Ms. Morris?" She extended a hand to me, and I reluctantly took it. "I'm Dr. Sullivan, please have a seat." I took a seat and looked around. I never liked hospitals. Cassandra and I visited hospitals a lot while growing up, and I tried to avoid it as much as I possibly could once I left home. Despite her being my sister, just thinking about Cassandra causes me anxiety. She wanted to be here today but couldn't get off work. I understood. I didn't mind doing this alone. I was a little glad she wasn't there. I didn't have to put on a brave face for her. She would never let me do this for her if she knew how terrified I was. "Ms. Morris, did you hear me?" The doctor's velvety voice interrupted my thoughts. "Oh, I'm sorry," I apologized with a nervous smile. I was lost in my thoughts for a moment. "Were you saying something?" "Yes." She smiled. "There's nothing to be nervous about. It's just a few tests to ensure you're ready to carry a baby. We are going to start by checking your blood pressure. Is that okay?" "Yes, let's do this." I nodded my head. She wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my arm, took my blood pressure, wrote down the results, and proceeded to draw blood for further testing. "Hold this for a second, please," she said as she pressed a bandage on the puncture spot to stop the bleeding. I replaced her hand with mine and pressed down. She picked up the vials of blood and stepped out of the room for a few minutes. I was just moments away from carrying my sister's baby, and I didn't quite know how to feel about that yet. Cass and Terrence have been trying to have a baby for the longest time. I knew she really wanted this, but couldn't afford a surrogate. I can't forget the look on her face when I told her I would be her surrogate. She was so happy but wanted me to be sure. It was just like Cass, she would never encourage me to do something I would later regret. But the thing she didn't understand was, I would do anything for her. She is my only family, and if this is what she needed, then I was going to do my best to give it to her. I sat up straight as I heard Dr. Sullivan walk back into the room. "Ms. Morris, I need a urine sample from you." She handed me a cup and pointed to a door in the right corner of the large room. "The bathroom's that way." I took the cup and headed toward the bathroom and did my business. Once I was done, I washed my hands and headed back to the room and handed the cup back to the doctor. Time seems to move slowly. The longer I stay here, the more nervous I get. I wondered when it would be over. "All right, I'm going to take this to the lab. While we wait for the results, get dressed in this gown, and I will be back shortly," she says as she hands me a hospital gown. Once she left the room, I got undressed and put on the gown. She stepped back in as I put my clothes neatly to the side. "Everything looks great," she said as she entered. "Your labs look good, your blood sugar levels are excellent, and you're not pregnant, you have no infection, and your blood count is exceptional." She smiled at me and declared, "You're as healthy as a horse." "That's the dream," I joked, and we both laughed. "Let's get started. Have a seat on the exam table, please." She turned and pointed at the exam chair. I did as I was told, sitting on the exam table. I didn't think I would be sitting on this anytime soon, but here I was. Dr. Sullivan pulled out the footholds from the table, and I placed my feet on them. Now I was completely open for the world to see. Well, maybe not the world, that's a bit extra, but that's how I felt. She adjusted the exam table to the position she needed. "Now just lay back, relax." This won't hurt at all, it will be over before you know it. She looked at me and smiled reassuringly. Somehow I doubted that was the case, but I was going to take her word for it. I felt her wipe the area, then I felt a syringe go inside me. Here goes nothing, I thought. It's not every day you get your brother-in-law's seed injected into you. Soon she was done and she sat back. That's it. You just need to stay in this position for a few minutes. It felt like forever as I waited in the cold, sterilized room. After waiting for a little while, the doctor came in and told me to get dressed. After getting dressed, I texted my sister I was done. Okay, Ms. Morris, here's a prescription you need to fill and start taking. She handed me the prescription. Thank you. I took the prescription and looked it over. That's all for today. I'll need you to come back in about 2 weeks and we'll know if it was successful. Okay, I said as I got up. Thank you. You're welcome, the ever-nice doctor said. See you in 2 weeks. As I walked out of the fertility clinic, I felt different. Of course I was different, I can't believe I just did that. I found my car, got in and exited the parking garage. One thought repeatedly played in my mind. I can't believe I just did that. I was on the phone with Cass as I pulled up to my house. I called her on the way home, and she had been squealing excitedly in my ear. She was finally getting the child she always wanted. Getting to the door, I fumbled with my keys, trying to steady my trembling hands as I balanced the phone between my ear and shoulder. The day had been stressful, and I looked forward to coming home, curling up on the couch, and maybe cuddling with Derek, my boyfriend. Are you there? Cass's voice brought me back from my thoughts. She must have asked a question. Cass, hold on a sec. I'm trying to get my door open. I pushed open the front door and something felt off. I had a strange feeling. The lights were off and silence overwhelmed the apartment. The power must have gone out. Didn't Derek pay the light bill? I gave him money to pay it last week. Sorry, I'm back, I said to Cass, feeling a bit angry at Derek. I don't know what's going on, but the power's out. Cass's voice was immediately soothing on the other end of the line. There might be a blackout in your neighborhood. I'm sure it'll be back on soon. Yeah, you're probably right. I opened the curtains. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. There was nothing in my apartment. My couch, table, TV, and everything else were gone. Oh my God, I gasped. What? Cass was immediately worried. What's going on? I didn't want to alarm her. I knew she would rush over immediately and would fret more than I would. Nothing. I stepped on something, I said, forcing a laugh. Anyways, how was your day? Cass must have sensed something was off, but she didn't press further. Instead, she launched into sharing the details of her day. I listened as I made my way through the apartment. It was completely empty. A note lay on the floor where my bed once was. My heart pounded as I picked up the letter. I didn't know what to expect, but I could already tell it was bad. The handwriting was unmistakably Derek's. With trembling hands, I read the content. Keisha. I can't do this anymore. I thought I could handle your decision to be Cass's surrogate, but it's too much for me. You let your sister control your life too much, and I can't be with someone like that. It's not what I signed up for. I need someone who would prioritize me in a relationship. I've taken everything in the house and the money from the account. Consider it compensation for my time and investment in the relationship. It's clear to me that we're not meant to be together. Don't try to find me, you'll be wasting your time. I'm moving on, and I suggest you do the same. My eyes widened in shock and my chest began to hurt. It felt like a dagger was stuck in my heart, and someone was twisting it. I felt my body go numb as I slid down to the floor, still clutching the letter. Keisha, are you there? Is everything okay? Cass asked gently, interrupting my thoughts. Cass was still on the phone. I had forgotten I was on the phone with her. I couldn't tell her what happened. At least not yet anyway. She would feel so guilty. Oh yeah, I'm fine, I replied, trying to hide the quiver in my voice. You need me to come over? Do you feel ill? Cass pushed, her concern evident. Talk to me. I'm getting worried. I took a deep breath, considering whether to tell her what had just happened. I couldn't do it. I couldn't put that guilt on her. "Everything's fine, Cass," I stammered, my voice shaky despite my best effort. "I have just dropped something. No big deal." I hoped Cass didn't notice my trembling voice, but it was too difficult to keep up the facade that everything was fine. My emotions were becoming overwhelming, and I knew I had to end the call before I completely broke down. "Listen, Cass, I need to go. I must rest, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you sure? I can come over." The concern was evident in her tone. Yes, I'm sure," I replied, my voice cracking despite my best efforts. "I'll talk to you later, okay?" Before she could respond, I hastily ended the call and opened my mobile banking app. I hoped to God that Derek was joking, that my balance would still show all my money that I worked hard to save. As the balance appeared on the screen showing a big fat 0, I knew it was true. Derek had cleaned me out. Tears streamed down my face and my phone dropped beside me on the floor. I clutched the letter tightly, unable to process the pain and shock coursing through me. I wanted so bad to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. I made my way back to the dimly lit living room and sank to the floor as I replayed the past few weeks in my mind. Had I missed the signs that hinted at this? I couldn't find any. Derek and I were good. Sure, he had expressed his disapproval when I decided to be a surrogate for my sister, but I thought we were past that. I told him I would do anything for my sister. I guess he didn't like that. A slow burn of anger surged through me, mixing with the shock and heartbreak. How could he do this to me? I loved and trusted him. What did he do in return? He betrayed me in the worst possible way. Everything he took belonged to me. He moved into my fully furnished house. Those were my belongings and that was my money. I felt like a fool. Tears continued to fall down my face, trying to process the hurt. The hurt was overwhelming, and I wish I could turn back time and undo everything. But life didn't work that way. I had to face the harsh reality in front of me, so I did the next sensible thing. I picked up my phone and dialed the emergency number. 911, how may I help you? The lady on the other end said. Hi, I've been robbed. 6 weeks later. Since that fateful night, I have been trying to pick up the pieces of my life. When I eventually told Cass and Terrence about what Derek had done, they were livid. The police, however, still hadn't found him. Derek had just vanished into thin air. Cass and Terrence have been my rock. I was meeting them for lunch today. I spotted them and headed toward them as I made my way through the cafe. As soon as Cass saw me, she got up and started heading toward me. She hugged me tightly and I felt like everything would be all right once more. She always made me feel this way. Happy 6 weeks. I'm so excited. She squealed and giggled at the silliness. I laughed with her. She called me every week to celebrate the milestone of the pregnancy. She was super excited. We headed to the table where I hugged Terrence. It's been a minute, Terrence. You hiding from me? I teased. He smiled shyly. Of course not, you're my favorite sister. I'm your only sister, I returned dryly. And I wouldn't have it any other way, he winked, and I laughed at that. How's the salon? Been busy? Cass asked. Business is good as usual. Alex is happy, of course. I replied, talking about my boss. I hope he offers more pay for all the stress, though. Do you need money? Terrence asked immediately. We can help, you know. We're always here for you. Of course, I know that. I'll ask if I ever need it. I managed a small smile, appreciating his care. The waitress finally made it over to us, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee came with him. The waitress was a pesky little redhead, who smiled brightly as she handed us the menus. Cass, ever the decisive one, quickly scanned the options and said, I'll have a chicken avocado sandwich with a side of sweet potato fries. She handed her menu back to the waitress. Terrence chuckled and handed his menu back to the waitress too. Make that 2, please. Oh, and could you bring us some extra dipping sauce on the side? Thanks. The waitress noted down their orders and turned to me. I smiled at the familiarity of their routine. Terrence always had whatever Cass was having. I'll just have a veggie burger with a side of crispy onion rings, I said with a smile, handing over my menu as well. Cass raised an eyebrow, playfully teasing. Veggie burger, huh? Are we health conscious now? Trying to avoid the pregnancy weight already? I chuckled. It's all about balance. The waitress soon returned with our meals, and as we ate, Cass filled me in on everything I had missed in their life recently. Any updates on Derek? Terrence inquired, concern evident in his voice. I shook my head. No, not yet. It's like he disappeared into thin air. Cass reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. You know I'm here for you, right? Any time? I smiled as her love warmed my heart. I know. The conversation shifted, and Cass couldn't contain her excitement as she asked, How are you feeling? Have you had any cravings yet? I laughed, finding her excitement sweet. Of course not, it's still too early for that, I think. As the conversation moved on, I couldn't help but think of the tiny life growing inside me. Even though everything has been rough, this little baby was our ray of hope. It would make my sister so happy, and I just know she'd be an amazing mom. Lunch was soon over, and they got up to leave. I was determined to stay a bit longer, so I hugged them tightly, promising we'd do this often. I watched them walk away and turned back to my onion rings, letting my thoughts drift away. I didn't stay too much longer, though. As soon as I got into my car, my phone rang. Hello, I whispered as I held the phone to my ear. Miss Keisha? The voice on the other end inquired. Yes, I whispered. This is Nurse Tammy from White Memorial Hospital. There's been an accident, the voice said, urgency dripping in every word. Your sister and her husband were brought in. Her words were like a punch to my gut, and I reached out to grip the steering wheel for support. Panic surged through me and I blurted out, What? Are they okay? We need you to come to the hospital right away, she said. I'm on my way. I managed to say, my voice shaking. With my hands shaking, I managed to start the car and leave. As I started the car and drove out, I muttered, Please let them be fine, please let them be okay. The drive to the hospital was the longest ride of my life. It was a blur of tears and panic. My heart was in my throat as I prayed for their safety. Worst-case scenarios flooded my heart, but it couldn't be, could it? I just saw them less than 10 minutes ago. Of course they would be fine. When I finally arrived at the hospital, I could barely get my door open as my hands trembled violently. I rushed through the doors, my heart pounding lightly in my ears. My eyes darted around, searching for any sign of them. I was breathless as I approached the reception desk. Hi, I'm Keisha. I got a call that my sister and her husband were brought in, I told the nurse, my voice shaking. Can you tell me where they are? My eyes brimmed with tears. The nurse nodded and led me to the emergency room. My legs felt like lead as I entered the emergency room. A doctor approached me with a solemn expression. Are you family? He asked gently. Yes, I'm Cass's sister, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry, but there's no easy way to say this, the doctor said, his eyes filled with sympathy. Your sister and her husband didn't make it. They passed away quickly due to the injuries sustained in the accident. The world crumbled around me, and it felt like I was below water, and I couldn't breathe. I shook my head, unable to process the words. It had to be a nightmare. No, you must be mistaken. We just had lunch together, and they were fine when they left the restaurant. You must be mistaken. You're lying to me. I stepped back, my voice breaking as tears streamed down my face. They can't be gone. I just saw them. They can't be dead. Please tell me it's not true. It can't be true. I cried out. The doctor's face softened, but his words were final. I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but they couldn't be saved. My legs gave way beneath me and I fell to the floor, the pain and grief strongly crashing over me. I screamed, No, repeatedly, as if my denial could somehow reverse my reality. The memory of my sister heading toward me in the cafe with her brightest smile replayed in my mind, and then everything went dark.